My wife's brutal affair and lies were exposed by a hotel key. My cold, calculated revenge destroyed her life. Shocking. Hey Reddit, I'm posting this from a throwaway because my life just took a nosedive I never saw coming, and I feel like I'm living in some twisted drama. I genuinely need some outside perspective, because my head's a complete mess right now. My wife, Sarah, and I have been together for 12 years, married for 8. We met in college, practically inseparable from day one. I thought we had it all, a beautiful home, 2 amazing kids, Liam, 6, and Chloe, 4, and what I believed was an unshakable bond. She was always the vibrant, outgoing one, I was more the steady, reliable type. We balanced each other, or so I thought. Looking back, there were signs, I just dismissed them as stress or my own overthinking. Over the past year, Sarah started getting distant. Less affectionate, more irritable. She'd snap at me for the smallest things, then apologize with a fleeting kiss, blaming work or the kids. There were more girls' nights out, sometimes 2 or 3 a week. She started obsessing over her appearance more, new clothes, salon visits. I asked if everything was okay, if she was happy. She'd always give me the same sweet, reassuring smile, tell me I was being silly, that she loved me more than anything. Just tired, honey, she'd say, being a mom and working full-time is exhausting. And I, being the ever-trusting idiot, bought it. Every single time. My gut kept telling me something was off, but I pushed it down. Gaslighting myself, thinking I was just insecure. She loves you, I'd tell myself. She's just busy. Oh, how wrong I was. So wrong. It all came to a head about 3 weeks ago. Sarah had a work conference out of town, a common occurrence lately. She was gone for 3 days. The first night, I was busy with the kids, getting them fed, bathed, and into bed. Liam was having trouble sleeping, kept asking for mom. I eventually got him settled, but the house felt too quiet. The next morning, I was cleaning up after breakfast, cereal bowls, toys scattered everywhere. I grabbed her gym bag, which she'd left by the back door, meaning to put it in the laundry. As I picked it up, something slid out from a side pocket and clattered onto the tile floor. It was a hotel room key card. Not just any hotel, though. It was from the Grand Summit, a swanky place downtown, maybe 15 minutes from our house. Definitely not out of town. My heart started pounding, a cold dread washing over me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she forgot it there after a spa day. But why would she have a room key? Why would she lie about being out of town? The gears in my head started grinding, and a sick feeling built in my stomach. I knew, even then, before I had any real proof, that something was terribly wrong. I picked up the key card, my hand shaking, and just stared at it. It felt like a ticking time bomb. I knew I couldn't ignore this. This wasn't just a sign anymore, this was concrete, undeniable evidence of a massive lie. I spent the rest of that day in a haze. I couldn't focus on work, I could barely play with the kids without feeling like I was going to throw up. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, hoping it was Sarah, dreading what I would say or what she wouldn't. She called later that evening, her voice chirpy, asking about the kids, telling me about her boring conference sessions. Each word was a dagger. I just mumbled noncommittally, trying to keep my voice even. Later, after the kids were asleep, I did something I'm not proud of, but desperation takes over. I went through her phone. I know, invasion of privacy, but at that point, trust was already shattered. Her texts with me were normal, saccharine even. Texts with her friends were mostly about work or the kids. Then I found it. A hidden folder, disguised as a utility app. My blood ran cold. Inside were hundreds of messages and photos. Not with friends. With him. His name was Mark. The texts were sickeningly intimate, explicit even. Pictures of them together, kissing, in bed. Pictures of gifts he'd given her, a necklace I recognized, that she'd told me was on sale. There were screenshots of hotel bookings, all for the Grand Summit. Dates that perfectly aligned with her girls' nights and work conferences. My entire world crumbled in that moment. It wasn't just an affair, it was a full-blown, months-long double life. The rage that erupted in me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was a primal scream trapped in my chest. I felt like I was going to shatter into a million pieces. My wife. My Sarah. The mother of my children. This entire time. How could she? How could she do this to us? I sat there, staring at the screen, tears streaming down my face, completely numb and yet completely on fire. She came home the next afternoon, bright and cheerful, acting like nothing was amiss. She hugged me, kissed the kids, asked how our weekend was. I just watched her, this stranger in my home, this woman who had so expertly woven a web of lies around me. I couldn't even look her in the eye without feeling a surge of disgust and pure, unadulterated hatred. I knew I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it right. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of the pain she had inflicted on me. I waited until the kids were asleep again. I put on a brave face, walked into the living room where she was unwinding, scrolling through her phone. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. She looked up, a slight frown on her face. "What's wrong, honey? You seem off." Oh, the irony. I pulled out her gym bag from behind the sofa and dropped the key card onto the coffee table with a clatter. Her eyes widened, and the color drained from her face almost instantly. "What's this?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "The Grand Summit. Funny, I thought you were at a conference upstate." She stammered, "Oh, that's old. I must have forgotten it." "Old?" I scoffed, pulling out my phone and placing it on the table, open to the hidden folder. "Is this old too, Sarah? Is Mark old? Are these pictures old?" Her jaw dropped. Her face went from pale to a ghastly green. She tried to grab the phone, but I pulled it away. "Don't even try, Sarah. I know everything. Everything. The dam broke." She started crying, immediately, dramatically. "Oh my God, honey, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, a terrible, awful mistake." She tried to reach for me, but I recoiled as if she were poison. "A mistake?" I echoed, my voice shaking with fury. "Months of mistakes. Hidden folders. Elaborate lies about conferences and girls' nights. That's not a mistake, Sarah. That's a deliberate, calculated betrayal." She knelt on the floor, clinging to my legs, begging. "Please, please, give me another chance. I don't know what I was thinking." He meant nothing. It was just. I was feeling neglected, lonely. "You've been so busy with work, with the kids." She tried to deflect, to blame me, to minimize her actions. It was a pathetic, transparent attempt. "Neglected?" I practically roared, yanking my legs away from her grasp. "I work my ass off for this family. I come home every day to you and our children. While you were screwing some random guy in a luxury hotel, I was putting our kids to bed, telling them how much mommy misses them on her work trip." Her excuses were a torrent of self-pity and thinly veiled accusations. She blamed her postpartum depression, blamed her job stress, blamed my supposed lack of attention. It was a masterclass in gaslighting, but I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. Each word out of her mouth, each crocodile tear, just fueled my disgust. It wasn't remorse I was seeing, it was panic. Panic that her comfortable, deceptive life was falling apart. She just kept repeating, "I love you, I love our family, please don't leave me." But it felt utterly hollow, a performance for an audience of one broken man. The immediate aftermath of the confrontation was a blur of raw, unfiltered emotion. I kicked her out that night. I told her to pack a bag and go, that I couldn't stand to look at her. She pleaded, cried, threatened to call the police, but I stood firm. I just pointed to the door. She eventually left, probably to her lover's place for all I knew or cared. I locked the door behind her, feeling a strange mix of relief and utter emptiness. The next few days were a living hell. The rage was still there, a simmering inferno beneath my skin, but it was now accompanied by waves of profound sadness and confusion. I felt like a ghost in my own home. Every corner held a memory, now tainted. Her favorite mug, her side of the bed, the photos on the mantelpiece, they all mocked me. My mind replayed every lie, every fake smile, every instance where I had been a fool. The pain was physical, a constant ache in my chest that felt like a gaping wound. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. The kids were confused, asking where mommy was. I just told them she was away for a bit, a lie I hated telling, but I couldn't bring myself to shatter their world just yet. One moment I was screaming into a pillow, the next I was curled up on the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. The betrayal wasn't just about her sleeping with someone else, it was about the utter destruction of our shared history, our future, everything I believed in. It was a complete annihilation of trust. I felt stupid, naive, and incredibly foolish. How could I have been so blind? How could someone I loved so deeply betray me so completely? The weight of it all was crushing. I felt utterly alone, adrift in a sea of grief and anger. I just wanted it all to stop, to go back to the naive ignorance I lived in just days before. But there was no going back. The innocence was gone, replaced by a harsh, ugly reality. By the way, if you're enjoying this story and want to hear more updates, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and hitting that like button. Every bit of support helps. Back to the story. As the initial shock began to wear off, a new, colder emotion started to set in. The grief was still there, a dull throb, but it was slowly being eclipsed by something else, a fierce, burning desire for retribution. Sarah had destroyed my life, shattered my trust, and made a mockery of everything we built. She didn't just break my heart, she took a sledgehammer to my entire existence. And she expected to walk away unscathed, perhaps even beg her way back into my good graces. Not a chance. I started thinking, plotting. Not out of blind rage, but with a chilling clarity. I wanted to hurt her the way she had hurt me, to strip away her comfort and her illusions. Her carefully constructed life, built on a foundation of lies, was about to come crashing down. I began researching divorce lawyers, not just any lawyer, but one known for being aggressive. I started gathering evidence, printing out those texts, those photos, building an airtight case. I called our bank, our joint credit card companies, just to understand our financial situation, to see what she had access to, what I could protect. This wasn't about winning her back, it was about ensuring she lost everything she valued. Her reputation, her financial stability, her sense of security. She had reveled in her secret life, living it up while I played the doting, clueless husband. Now, it was her turn to pay. The idea of brutal revenge, meticulously planned, started to feel less like a dark fantasy and more like a necessary act of self-preservation. It was the only way I could even begin to process the depth of her betrayal. I wasn't just going to survive, I was going to make sure she regretted ever crossing me. My first step was to secure my financial position. I knew Sarah was going to fight dirty, and I wasn't going to let her bleed me dry or leverage my love for the kids against me. I immediately went to the bank and opened a separate account, transferring enough money to cover immediate expenses and legal fees. I also put a freeze on our joint credit cards, giving her access to a very limited emergency fund for the kids, making it clear that any large purchases would be scrutinized. I knew this would infuriate her, but I didn't care. It was a necessary move to protect myself and, more importantly, the kids' future. Then, I consulted with an attorney who specialized in high-conflict divorce cases. I laid out everything, showing him the evidence, the timeline, her attempts to gaslight me. He was grim-faced but assured me I had a very strong case for infidelity and possibly financial misconduct, depending on how deeply she had been using joint funds to support her affair. His advice was to gather even more evidence, document everything, and maintain a calm, collected demeanor, no matter how much she provoked me. He also advised me to formally notify her through him that she was not to return to the marital home without my express permission, especially while the children were present, citing her recent absence and questionable activities. This sent a clear message: the gloves were off. I felt a perverse sense of control returning. It wasn't happiness, not by a long shot, but it was a step away from the crushing helplessness. Each action, no matter how small, felt like chipping away at the immense boulder of betrayal that had landed on my life. I was building my fortress, preparing for war, and Sarah was about to realize that her mistake was going to cost her everything. Her reaction to my legal maneuver was exactly what I expected: explosive and accusatory. My lawyer sent her a formal letter, detailing my intent to file for divorce on the grounds of adultery and outlining the protective measures I'd taken regarding our finances and the marital home. The phone call started almost immediately. She screamed, she cried, she threatened me with everything under the sun. "How dare you? You can't just cut me off. I'm your wife. This is my house too," she shrieked down the phone at me. "You're going to regret this. I'll take you for everything you have." I remained calm, remembering my lawyer's advice. I didn't engage with her emotional tirades. I simply stated, "Sarah, all communication regarding this matter needs to go through our respective attorneys. This conversation is over." And I hung up. It felt incredibly liberating. No more explanations, no more justifications, no more falling for her crocodile tears. The kids, meanwhile, were still confused. I told them mommy was staying with a friend for a while and that daddy was taking care of everything. It broke my heart to see their little faces, asking when she'd be back, but I knew I couldn't expose them to her manipulative drama. I tried to maintain as much normalcy as possible for them, making sure their routines weren't disrupted, showering them with extra love and attention. They were my anchors, the only reason I wasn't completely spiraling. Every time I looked at their innocent faces, it solidified my resolve: I had to fight for them, to protect them from the fallout of her monstrous betrayal. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about ensuring they had a stable, secure future, free from the instability she had introduced. My next move was something I'd been dreading but knew was essential for my own sanity and to fully expose her hypocrisy. I contacted Mark, the affair partner. I got his number from Sarah's hidden folder. My lawyer advised against direct contact, but I didn't care. I needed him to know, to see the fallout of his actions, and honestly, a part of me just wanted to mess with their little fantasy world. I sent him a text, simple and blunt: "You've been sleeping with a married woman, Sarah, last name. I have all the proof. My lawyer will be in touch." I didn't wait for a response. I blocked him immediately. I wanted to plant the seed of doubt, the fear of exposure, without giving him the satisfaction of a conversation. It was a calculated move to inject chaos into their little bubble, and I knew it would work. He probably had no idea she was married, or if he did, he certainly didn't care. Now, he would. A few hours later, my phone blew up with calls and texts from Sarah. "What did you do?" she screamed in one voicemail. "You're insane. You're ruining my life." Good. That was the point. Her life, built on lies, deserved to be ruined. It wasn't just about cutting her off financially, it was about tearing down the facade she had so carefully constructed. I wanted her to feel the shame, the humiliation, the utter loss of control that she had so casually inflicted upon me. The quiet satisfaction I felt was grim, but it was there. This was the first domino in what I hoped would be a long, painful collapse for her. I was done being the victim. It was time for her to face the music. If you're finding this story compelling, please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more updates and future content. Your support means a lot. Thanks for sticking with me. The next few weeks were a relentless grind of legal work and emotional processing. Sarah, realizing I was serious and not backing down, escalated her tactics. She started calling mutual friends, spreading a narrative about me being controlling and mentally unstable, trying to garner sympathy and turn people against me. Thankfully, most of our true friends saw through her BS. A few, however, seemed to believe her, which stung, but I knew who my real allies were. It was a painful weeding out process, but ultimately clarifying. I also discovered, through my lawyer's diligent digging, that Sarah had been siphoning off significant amounts of money from our joint savings account, ostensibly for business expenses for her fake conferences, but clearly used to fund her lavish affair. My lawyer was ecstatic. This provided even stronger grounds for an advantageous divorce settlement for me, possibly even full reimbursement of the misused funds. The mental toll was immense. I was functioning on autopilot most days, fueled by a mixture of anger, determination, and the sheer necessity of caring for my kids. I started therapy, something I never thought I'd need. It helped immensely to have an unbiased person to talk to, someone who could help me navigate the swirling vortex of emotions without judgment. My therapist helped me understand that my desire for revenge, while valid given the betrayal, needed to be channeled into constructive legal action, rather than destructive personal confrontations. The goal was justice, not just raw retaliation. This subtle shift in perspective, from pure vengeance to calculated justice, allowed me to approach each step with a cooler head, which was proving to be invaluable in dealing with Sarah's erratic behavior. The divorce proceedings officially began, and Sarah, true to form, tried every trick in the book. She attempted to accuse me of abuse, of controlling her finances, of being an unfit parent. My lawyer, armed with my meticulous documentation and her own past patterns of behavior, swiftly shot down every claim. The evidence of her infidelity and financial misconduct was simply too overwhelming. She tried to deny the affair, then minimize it, then blame it on a midlife crisis. It was a pathetic, desperate charade, and the judge wasn't buying it. Her attempts to manipulate me directly also intensified. She would send long, tearful emails, begging for forgiveness, promising to change, swearing her undying love for me and the kids. Then, when I didn't respond, she'd turn venomous, sending angry, threatening messages. It was a constant push and pull, a psychological war, but I had learned to steel myself against her tactics. I simply forwarded everything to my lawyer, who advised me not to engage. Slowly, excruciatingly slowly, the tide began to turn in my favor. The court granted me temporary sole custody of the children, with supervised visitation for Sarah, citing her unstable behavior and the impact of her actions on the children's well-being. This was a huge victory, and while it broke my heart that the kids wouldn't have their mother around consistently, I knew it was for their protection. They needed stability, and Sarah was anything but stable right now. This outcome, though painful, confirmed that my brutal revenge wasn't just about me anymore. It was about securing a safe future for my children. I wasn't just winning, I was protecting. As the legal battles raged, I also had to contend with the immediate aftermath of my previous actions. Mark, the affair partner, had apparently told his wife about Sarah, after I exposed him. His wife, understandably enraged, had then called our mutual friends, essentially blowing up Sarah's entire carefully crafted reputation within our social circle. Sarah was no longer seen as the sweet, busy mom, she was the deceitful cheater who ruined her family. This was a collateral damage of my revelation, and while I hadn't planned for it, I certainly didn't regret it. Sarah was absolutely livid. She called me, screaming about how I had destroyed her life and ruined her name. I calmly informed her that her actions, not mine, were the architects of her current predicament. I also informed her that several friends had reached out to me, offering support and expressing their disgust at her behavior. The sheer hypocrisy of her outrage was almost comical. She wanted to live a double life, but expected no consequences when it imploded. I learned a crucial lesson about revenge during this period: it's a double-edged sword. While seeing her world crumble provided a grim satisfaction, it also added more drama and stress to my life. However, it was also a cleansing fire. It burned away the false image she had projected, not just to me, but to everyone. And in that destruction, there was a strange kind of liberation for me. I was no longer holding on to secrets, no longer living a lie. The truth, however ugly, was finally out in the open, and that, in itself, was a form of brutal revenge. I was no longer alone in carrying the burden of her deceit. It was out in the open, for everyone to see. The financial retribution was swift and brutal. My lawyer presented overwhelming evidence of her misuse of joint funds, including bank statements showing withdrawals directly correlating with her conference dates and luxury purchases that matched gifts she'd received from Mark. The judge ordered her to repay a significant portion of the siphoned money. Furthermore, because of her infidelity and financial misconduct, the divorce settlement was heavily skewed in my favor. She received far less than she would have in a typical 50-50 split, and lost almost all claims to our marital home, which was my primary concern for the kids' stability. It wasn't just the money, it was the stripping away of her illusions. She had believed she could have her cake and eat it too, a stable family life with me, and a thrilling affair with Mark, all while using our joint resources to fund her deception. Now, she was facing a harsh reality: a significantly diminished financial standing, a destroyed reputation, and limited access to her children. The comfortable life she had taken for granted, and then so brazenly jeopardized, was gone. I didn't feel joy, not exactly. More like a profound sense of exhausted relief. Justice had been served, cold and clinical. It wasn't the fiery, emotional revenge I had initially craved, but something far more effective and enduring. She was facing the real, tangible consequences of her actions, consequences that would follow her for years. And for the first time in a long time, I started to feel like I could breathe again. The suffocating weight of betrayal was slowly, incrementally, lifting. This was the true, brutal outcome of her choices. After months of intense legal battles, the divorce was finalized. It was a somber day, but also a strangely cathartic one. Sarah was stripped of nearly everything she valued, her reputation was in tatters, her finances severely impacted, and her custody of the children reduced to supervised visits. She had to move out of our home, the home she had once so proudly decorated, and into a small apartment. Mark, I heard through the grapevine, had been divorced by his wife and had also moved out of town, having decided that being linked to a married woman and her scandalous divorce wasn't good for his career. Her affair had imploded both their lives. My life, though irrevocably changed, began to stabilize. I had primary custody of Liam and Chloe, and our home was a haven of peace, free from the tension and lies that had poisoned it for so long. I dedicated myself to being the best father I could be, focusing all my energy on rebuilding our lives. The pain of the betrayal still lingered, a scar that would probably never fully heal, but the raw, burning anger had subsided. It was replaced by a quiet determination and a profound sense of self-respect. I had faced the worst, fought back, and emerged, not unscathed, but intact. I realized that my initial desire for brutal revenge had evolved. It wasn't about hurting her for the sake of hurting her anymore, but about ensuring justice, protecting my children, and reclaiming my dignity. The satisfaction I felt wasn't from her suffering, but from knowing I had stood up for myself and secured a better future for my kids. The revenge was simply the means to that end. By the way, as we wrap up this intense journey, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to like this story and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Your support helps me share these experiences and connect with others. Thank you.